long term to think, how could we create a model for regional church planting that would allow us to then launch into Chicago, Nashville, Indy, and so forth. There's a ton of cities that are very representative of what we have from Kansas City to St. Louis. All about 4 hours, where we can partner with one another and see a work established.
Hi, I'm Brandon Briscoe, and welcome to The Postscript, Living Faith Bible Institute's weekly podcast and YouTube series devoted to interviewing pastors and professors from LFBI and across the Living Faith Fellowship. The Living Faith Bible Institute has a heart for church planting. There's no doubt about it. We take it really serious. Our curriculum, among other things, focuses very heavily on preparing men and women for the work of missions and church planting domestically and all over the world. Many of our graduates are investing in this very work, one of whom is Blade Sbisa, who, along with his wife and his children, are currently preparing to leave their home church in Lee Summit, Missouri, to establish another disciple-making church across the state in St. Louis. He's heading east. And so with that, I'm so excited to have my friend on the show. He's going to tell us all about that work and what God's doing in his life. And I'm praying that it'll inspire you as well to consider that work for yourself and also maybe how you can support him. And so with that, I want to welcome Blade to the show, man. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Doing all right?
It really is. I am doing all right. Busy day for sure. Yeah, we are actually headed out to St. Louis this afternoon. So I head home, finish packing my bag, and then we're out for at least a weekend.
Yeah, so we'll come back to this idea, but the idea is that one of the beautiful things about planning a church on the other side of the state is that you can kind of make these interim trips back and forth very easily, and it's strategic in that way, and so that's pretty cool that you get to do that. So we'll keep this. We'll try to keep it to an hour.
No worries. Yeah, I don't have any obligations there when I land.
So before we get into anything, I want to point out that you're doing a PS Plus series for the show this moment.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I am.
So tell us about.
I need to get to work on those.
Well, the first one's already come out.
It has,
and it's but by the time this episode comes out, I'm sure several maybe will.
Yeah, I've got three or four recorded. I think we have 9 in the running. It's a series on biblical anthropology, a study on what it means to be human. Yeah, what is man? So we're going to establish a biblical worldview, which we've done in the first, and then walk through divergent worldviews that people take for their understanding of what it means to be human. And then we're going to expose an apologetic from John chapter 4, looking at all of those divergent worlviews. So I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm excited about it too. The first episode turned out great.
Well, I hope so.
And one of the things that we try to achieve with the PS Plus is just to provide people with kind of sound bites on theology, right? Like just little bits, incremental, information about a very important theological topic, and so this is a great one for us to tackle, and I'm really thankful.
And a huge one.
Yeah, it is huge.
So I feel like I taught a lot of this material to our young adults, and I said I feel like I'm taking a cotton ball to a piece of diamond, like barely scratching the surface. It's just so big. You can't understand any part of theology if you don't first understand man. Yeah. So. And
the beautiful thing though is it informs us in our kind of over-psychologized world, where there's all these theories about who we are, how we think, how we emote, how we need to perceive the world. All of it kind of comes back to this, and if we can define things biblically, then we immediately, cut all out and sort through all of the nonsense and the false teaching that we get in the world.
And there's a lot of it.
There is a lot of it. Yeah. Every philosopher and psychologist that's ever existed has muddied that water.
Yeah, and without taking away too much from our conversation today, Colossians 2 says it'll spoil us. And that's the warning for the series as well, is that we can ask endless questions, but if we're not pursuing the truth unto edification and obedience, doesn't matter.
What good is it? Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about St. Louis and what you're hoping for in the next year. Like what is the objective? And then we'll come back to your story, because I want to introduce you to people in terms of who you are and your biography.
Sure. So the initial goal is to get there and to move our lives to the city and establish a Bible study. That Bible study started on February 1st, just a few weeks ago, actually. And we had 4 people from the city. We had 8 people there, but 4 people from the city of St. Louis that joined.
Wow, cool.
And so we are thrilled about that, and continuing to meet with them bi-weekly on Saturday evenings. And then as I'm able, I'm traveling to the city to meet with those people and continue to invest and reach others as I'm able.
And so you're hoping to plant a church kind of the way your church was planted.
Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe
it's the model I have.
Yeah. And so that's through Bible study, like the idea that you're gathering people together to study God's word, and then they're...
Yeah, and I think that's the model, right? So 2 Corinthians chapter 5 tells us we've been given the ministry of reconciliation, and that we do that ministry by the word of reconciliation. So why not a Bible study? That only makes sense. I hear as an echo in my mind, in my early days, the words of Sam Miles. He would say ministry is an open book. And I'm sure a lot of people around Midtown still hear that in their heads, but that is ministry. It's the word of reconciliation being opened unto the work of reconciliation in the lives of people. And so, it begins with a Bible study. In 2017, we planted a church because a Bible study grew out of a home. That was a family Bible study, but behind the scenes was a Bible study with high school students and children and college students at the time. And people were coming to Christ and getting discipled through the Word, and it only made sense to then meet together and worship together and see if God would do something. So
and
we're going to do that again.
It became a local church. Yeah, you're going to do it again. Why St. Louis? What's so great about St. Louis from your perspective that draws you to that city? We've talked about this at length, but there are a lot of different things that really stand out to you in terms of St. Louis as a strategic city.
Sure.
Share with us a little bit why you've chosen to go there.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of reasons for the city. The first that comes to mind is my burden for the people. But strategically, it allows us in Kansas City to continue moving east and reaching the east side of the Midwest. So long term, to think, how could we create a model for regional church planning that would allow us to then launch into Chicago, Nashville, Indy, and so forth. There's a ton of cities that are very representative of what we have from Kansas City to St. Louis. All about 4 hours, where we can partner with one another and see a work established. So that's a beautiful piece of it for strategy. The other part for me is the Catholic presence in the city. So that's how I grew up. That's how I was raised. I came to Christ because the Bible was open and I saw the simplicity of the gospel. And so I have a burden that, Catholics would see the simplicity that's in Christ. And it's a very academic city as well. It's filled with a lot of intellectuals. There's 30 colleges with 4-year degrees and 10 colleges with 2-year degrees. If you look at just like the population ratio to the number of colleges, it's in line with Boston and some of those other, cities that are huge. Now, there may be more students in those cities, so it's not quite a fair statistic, but plenty of students to reach.
Man,
and
doubt.
The piece that's intriguing about that specifically is local loyalty to stay in the city. So whereas a lot of other cities, the students are transient, they come in and then they leave. Part of reaching students in St. Louis is interesting because many of them stay.
Yeah.
And the stats support that. So I'm very captivated by that.
Yeah, which is one of the kind of the key tools that we grew up with, both of us. I mean, it's my ministry and your ministry.
Yeah, I lead college students right now.
Yeah,
we've got campus Bible studies. For example, we in Lee Summit reach the University of Central Missouri, UCM, and we had about 20 people a part of a Bible study, and half of them were from St. Louis. And they were asking, "Hey, I'm going home after college. Do you know of any churches that are like-minded?" And I was having to be the one telling them, "No."
Yeah. And as you know, I had the same thing. Yeah, in my ministry, there was always people going back to St. Louis or moving there for work. And I would do research upon research. The city is filled with Calvinistic churches, churches that are, non-denom in the worst way possible, kind of that neo-evangelical liberalism, or just Catholic churches everywhere. So it was really hard.
A few years ago, there was 176 Catholic churches in the metro. I think that number's down to like 130, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
But still many, many people to that, and Reformed churches as well as, entertainment centers.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, St. Louis has got like a really strong Italian population, and several European countries that are primarily Catholic migrated there.
Yes.
In the 19th century, 18th and 19th century, and so it's just filled with all these people from all over the world that have a belief in God but deny the power thereof. So that's cool work to be a part of, especially your burden for people like that. So
sure, yeah, and it's part of the story a little bit. Specifically here, the idea that there are other cultures within the city. There's a pretty decent foreign population there in St. Louis. The Hispanic community is actually growing a lot, more than most major cities in the U.S. But one of the pieces for me getting to St. Louis was me continuing to prove out the call on my life for that city. And the only model I had for international church planning was Cale Horvath. I mean, I know there's many models here, but I knew that nationally, if I was to plant, the place I always came back to and had a burden for was St. Louis. But then as I was asking the Lord, okay, to be honest in this call, if I were to plant internationally, where would that be? I saw Cale do that. Where's my grandpa from? So let me just start doing research on where my grandpa's from, which is what is now Croatia. So it's kind of the northeastern boot of Italy.
So you're speaking, Cale Horvath planted a church in Hungary.
For those that don't know.
And that's where his family heritage is. So he's got, near relatives that come directly from Hungary. And so he was thinking, I'm going to go back to my people. And that was kind of your thought too.
Yeah, I was just thinking through that. As a kid, I had an opportunity to go to Italy. My grandpa took us to his hometown in Croatia, in a very, very beautiful place called Rovini. It's like a touristy town. Anyway, you can look it up. Try to figure out how to spell that word. And so, I started to do research on Croatia, and I actually met some missionaries from there and began to follow their works and contact with them. There was a man who has a church plant, a like-minded church plant in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, and he just expressed his burden there in Croatia for the country south of Croatia called Bosnia. And he said, in like my 20-something years of doing ministry in Croatia, I don't know of any missionaries to Bosnia, and I would love to see a missionary go to Bosnia. So I was like, okay, well, Lord, I'll take that as an invitation to start praying for Bosnia and doing research. And in the scope of that research, you almost immediately find that the largest Bosniak community outside of Bosnia is St. Louis.
Wow.
So in 1994... there was a war that displaced like 80,000 Bosnians from their country.
I had a Bosnian friend that moved onto my block when I was in elementary school. Yeah.
So they got, they land in the U.S. and the U.S. pushed them to the city of St. Louis. And all that meant for me in the process of God confirming my call was saying, hey, I want you to look back at this city and consider it and pray for the people here. So we're not necessarily going to St. Louis to reach Bosnians, but I've always said if God wants to give us some, we'll be happy to lead them to Christ.
Yeah, and it was just one more way of God directing our eyes that direction.
Yeah, and confirming and reminding us, hey, I'm with you, and I've already got this thing figured out.
Yeah.
So
that's it reminds me a little bit. It makes me think of like how Paul was always trying to reach Jerusalem. And he always looking for the Jews, and God's like, okay, well, I can put up with that. I also need you to really focus on the Gentiles. Yeah. It's like, God's like, it's cool. Like, Bosnia. Yeah. But look over here, I've got these folks that I want you to.
Yeah. And so that's a big part of the confirmation on St. Louis. God was continuing to redirect my mind like bumpers. I think about like a bowling alley. He's like, I throw it horribly. And he's like, nah. That's not it. That's not it, man.
Yeah.
That's not it, dog.
Yeah, he has a way of redirecting us.
Yeah, and it was in always soft and very merciful ways, and that was one piece of many. So,
We want to hear your story though too. So
Sure.
Talk to us about how you came up and your salvation, but also just about how God has sanctified you and prepared you for pastoral ministry and the work of church plant. How do we get to where we're at now?
Yeah, so grew up Catholic. I always say in a non-traditional Catholic church, non-typical Catholic home. Out of high school, I fell into Midtown Baptist Temple, and I'd leave a philosophy class and end up in my, Dan Renault's art class, and he had led me to Christ and invited me in to Midtown. Once I got here, it was the first time in my life I'd seen the Bible opened and preached. I think I'd read it one time before. It was the first time in my life I ever saw a community of believers who genuinely lived what they said they believed. Mm-hmm. And so I just said yes to all of that. I signed up for discipleship. Dan discipled me. And then I just plugged into everything that I could while I was doing school here in the city. And so in 2017, that would have been 2013, that I initially got connected. In 2017, we got sent out from Midtown Baptist Temple to start a church in a suburb of Kansas City called Lee Summit. From there, I began leading the college ministry and young adults ministry, as well as the praise ministry. So I've done that since 2017. And we're an established church now. It's pretty wonderful to think about and see.
Yeah, God's done a lot.
8 years goes by quick.
It does. And it speeds up, dude. The older you get, the faster it goes.
Yeah, now I'm married. Now I've got a son and one on the way here in a couple weeks. And so ministry, in terms of what I've done in ministry, I feel like I've had my hand in every aspect of ministry. I think even before the church plant, that was true. I did everything I could to serve here, and I want to just say I give credit to my parents for that. Even though they were lost, their involvement in the church, the Catholic church I grew up at, was very service driven. They loved serving people and loved being active and sacrificial with their time. And so I probably just didn't even think anything about it, and just said, "Yeah, I'm gonna."
Involvement is what you do.
This is what you do. If you're a member of a church, you don't sit in a pew or sit in a chair.
Right.
You serve people. And so I'm really thankful for that model in my parents' life. I saw it my whole life.
Well, and the good news is, we don't leave it out, that they came to Christ.
They did come to Christ. Yeah, my whole family dynamic's totally different.
And they involve themselves here at the church. And
yeah, my dad's a deacon at our church. My aunt leads a large Bible study. My mom as well. So.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And my brother has taken over the college ministry that I've been leading for 8 years. So that's really exciting as well.
It is very exciting. Yeah, God's been at work in your family. It's a wonderful thing to see. And I think, and I never want to forget this too, because we've got some folks in our church who've over time watched their family come to Christ year over year and come get discipled, and brothers and sisters and parents and family members, like cousins, and they start coming and they're seeing God at work in their families. This is huge. And a lot of people pray for their families and they don't see things happening and they lose hope. And testimonies like yours remind us to have hope that God is going to use you to reach them. Yeah,
and I think in the moment of that tension, those conversations, it is hard to believe. I think about the two guys I had opportunity to disciple here at Midtown before we were sent. Both of them, when I was discipling them, had parents who were uninterested in the Lord or them having anything to do with the discipleship ministry. Today, they, to my knowledge, are both saved and attend Midtown Baptist Temple.
Yeah.
So it's just wonderful to see, and that's what God does.
And so they're serving with you in Lee Summit, and they're supportive of this. Your family's behind you, the church is behind you. When did you announced it? Just before Mission Focus to the church, correct?
We announced it in October of this year.
Okay. And
so right after Certainty Conference. Certainty Conference was a week that I'd opened up about it to the pastors. And then immediately following, we began to have conversations with our church about what this would look like.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Brian Clark, and I'm a church planter in the great city of London, but I'm also an instructor at the Living Faith Bible Institute. And I just want to take a minute just to encourage you. In my own life, apart from being discipled, probably the thing that changed the trajectory of my life the most was when I learned how to study the Bible for myself. To really be able to get into the words and be able to study, it absolutely changed my life. On our website, lfbi.org, we offer all kinds of resources. We offer survey courses for large chunks of the Bible, but we also offer courses on individual books, the Pauline epistles, as well as books from the Old Testament. And you can do it all online. You can do it at your own pace, at your own convenience. And so it's right there, ready and available for you to be able to encourage you and equip you in your faith at lfbi.org.
You're going to leave a big void there, but it'll be good for the church. No, it'll be good for the church though.
Yeah.
And people will be able to step up and own new areas of leadership. But you're looking to build a team, I suppose.
Yeah, we'd love to. We want whatever God wants, and that's as genuine as I can possibly be and not sound spiritual.
Yeah.
Like I just mean that. Like I don't want a team that God doesn't want, and I do want one if He wants it. And so yeah, we're praying for a team. And there are just a couple people right now interested, but nobody committed. So right now the team is me, the Lord, my wife, and my 2 sons.
Yeah.
So we're thrilled about that.
Yeah.
But we would also happily, want to stand beside people and do the ministry, have people to help lift our arms.
Yeah. People are proven.
People that are proven.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't give us trouble. I've been through a church plant and received trouble.
Yeah,
so.
right. Tell us a little bit about how LFBI equipped you for this, because you're a graduate of the school. How did your studies through the Bible Institute get you ready for this moment?
Yeah, I mean, the initial piece is doctrinal soundness. You can't do the ministry if you don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And you can't do the ministry if you're doing it wrong. Right, so initially, I would just say the Institute establishes a true exposition of God's Word unto sound teaching. That is where church planting begins. Beyond that, I would say there are a lot of practical things that have come from the Institute. Many classes relating to evangelism, church history, here specifically in the context of the city of St. Louis. Missions. I really enjoyed missions 1, 2, and 3, amongst many other courses I could start listing. But doctrinal soundness sounds like the thing that's most pressing for me right now. And I have a great appreciation for the level of investment that's been made, not from just instructors and some database, but from people doing the work and sharing their church planning experiences. I need those.
Yeah. And the insights, the practical insights that only a pastor could share, right?
Yes. Yeah. So right now my brother's going through pastoral procedures and some other men in our church. And I know in my own life that was an extremely practical class.
Yeah.
And I say that because, in the moment you're doing the assignments and creating the wedding and, format and the funeral and all that. Yeah. And immediately I put that to use. Like you become a college pastor, you do weddings.
You do. Oh yes, you do.
Yeah. And then this last year, ended up getting the opportunity to do a funeral as well. It was a great honor to be able to do that funeral. But that's the practical stuff that a YouTube video isn't going to get.
Yeah.
Get you.
And conversations, I think in that class, conversations about how do you establish, a board and so there's some finance stuff that to help you. And so there's all these things that people don't often think about that are really good for someone who's getting ready to do what you're about to do.
Yeah.
So give us what 2025 looks like. Walk us through what you're hoping from this next year. I mean, again, I want to hear more about particularly how your proximity to Kansas City, a 4-hour drive.
Sure.
How that's strategic in terms of engaging the Living Faith Fellowship churches in the Kansas City area, how you're hoping to partner with people in, small micro missions trips to evangelize, to do different things. Walk us through all the things that you're thinking about in terms of preparation for that.
Okay, all the things we don't have time for.
Yeah.
Thinking about a lot. But yeah, it's practical. Local regional church planning is practical, I would say, for two reasons. Me as a church planner, to be able to be liberated to travel back and forth at whatever schedule I need, but then for that partnership between the churches. So as I alluded to earlier, this afternoon I'm going and I'm going to be in the city, and I get to do that freely and then come back Saturday night and still be a part of our church services. No, this Saturday, technically, I'm not doing that because I've been invited into a church there in the city that's desiring for me to make a connection there with the congregants and possibly even lead them. Their pastor had passed away just 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And anyway, there's an invitation to be in the city, so I'm able to make that and still do ministry here. The other side of a regional focus allows churches to partner. And so our initial goal is to get this Bible study established, and then for us to get a space. It's kind of hard to do a Bible study without a home. I can't afford 2 mortgages,
right?
or a mortgage and a lease, at least until we move out of our current home. I'd love to keep our home and rent it out, or possibly sell it and make that work. But while we're trying to make the church plant work in the interim, it is a juggling act between showing up and trying to be with people and not spending too much money to make that happen. So like this first Bible study we did, I rented an Airbnb. We spent, a couple $100 because they require minimum 2 nights and all this junk.
Yeah.
And we have the Bible study in a home, and we're able to cook a meal and feed people. And
yeah, very cool.
And so that's what we're doing right now as we transition. But my goal will be to either get a home at the beginning of this summer, or be able to find a space that we can rent out. So when we planted Living Faithfully Summit, we started in a home that somebody lived in. They didn't have to move anything, and that was a great sacrifice still, but we were able to open up the home for that use. And then once we grew out of that space, we started renting a wedding venue space, and that worked wonderful for us, but the downside was we only got it for 3 hours on a Sunday morning.
Right.
And it was expensive.
Yeah, we did the same thing here. You're moving stuff expensive. In and out, and
set up and tear down.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot
of work. And so it's good for a short-term period, but you'll be looking for some permanence in time.
Ideally.
In time.
And so right now the prayer is likely to get a home that's central to the whole metro. And well, I guess 2 options. Either get a really small home to save money and then rent a space that we can host people in that is presentable, or just rent a larger home and take on that cost and expense within a lease that's more expensive, and be able to do the church in our home and grow like we did with Lead Summit. So,
what corridor of the city are you looking at, and why?
So we're looking at, the city well. I think a lot of the listeners may not know St. Louis. It's a very segmented city and choppy. It has tons of neighborhoods, but we're looking at the Chesterfield to Maryland Heights window right now. That's kind of shifting. It was Chesterfield to Baldwin, Kirkwood, up towards University City on the west side of Forest Park. There's a due west, straight west of Forest, is just a really nice area that we can't afford. Yeah. And I don't know if we have too much interest in planting in, but the area that wraps all of that is central to the whole metro. So that's the biggest piece that I'm interested in right now is in a metro as large as St. Louis with 3 million people, we don't know who God's going to give us. Right. So I don't want to necessarily get tied down to an area that isn't central for everyone.
Yeah. Remaining flexible allows you to follow the fruit.
Yes, but I'd be willing to either remain flexible or central, if I can distinguish those ideas.
Yeah.
So I don't mind getting fixed somewhere if it's a 20-minute drive for most of the metro. But I don't want to go out to Wentzville or go down South County get established, and then everyone's in Winsville or St. Charles or up north, and then we can't reach anybody.
Yeah, of course.
If God gives.
Yeah, that's good. What are some of the hurdles that you anticipate initially, spiritually as well as,
well, I think
financially?
I think there'll be a lot of pushback. One of the things probably I'm insecure about is my age, even though I know no man's to despise.
The beard will turn gray soon enough.
That's right. Yeah.
It'll come.
I can bleach it and then put some.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
I don't plan to. No, but I think that's one piece. The reality is people do despise people that are younger.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do everything I can to not let people do that. The other piece is the fact that the city is very Catholic, and people are very, given to, their little religion.
Yeah, their cultural dogmatisms.
Yeah, and sometimes that's atheism or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's a very intellectual city. So I've received a lot of warning that there are people who won't be interested in receiving the gospel because of that. I believe, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
That doesn't get people like us that hung up.
No. 1 Corinthians chapter 2 gives me plenty of confidence that the gospel is enough.
Yep.
And will confound the wise.
Right.
So that's fine. The financial piece is one piece. I don't know if I feel like if God's in the work, there really isn't going to be things that hinder it. Mm-hmm. Now, I know the enemy desires to hinder it, but the thing that's ringing in my mind is if God be for us, then who can be against us? Like I can't move my family and invite people into the ministry of another city if we don't go into battle that way.
Yeah.
Like imagine going to war and not being ready to have opposition. What?
Right.
Like, I don't know.
And you have to know what you're up against. They're giants in the land, whatever. But we're doing it.
They're our meal.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what Joshua says? Yeah, he's getting hungry.
Yeah, that's right. So, one of the things I want to make sure people know is I've known Blade since he was in high school. So, I mean, in terms of his development and his growth and his character, I could vouch for you all day. You're a dear friend, great partner in ministry. So from my perspective, it's a huge win to see you church planting and out on the field. And if people don't get behind you, they're missing out on an opportunity to invest in something that actually has some real, kingdom opportunity. So tell us a little bit about how people can partner with you, your website, and just information that they can get about the ministry.
Yeah, the website is lfstl.church. I know that's a weird ending there, but simple one.
Yeah.
lfstl.church. There you'll find some ways to partner with us and pray even. Our landing page for that website right now is currently a deputation page, allowing me to communicate kind of the ongoing needs and prayer requests of just us as we establish a work. Two pieces that come to mind regarding partnership. One is probably the most obvious, the financial piece. I'm trusting the Lord to be doing ministry full time and being free to evangelize and establish the work. I'd love to be able to do that as quickly as possible, as free as possible, to then be autonomous and self-sustaining. But I understand that the Lord will provide for us in whatever way He sees fit. The other piece of this that is just as obvious, I think, is the opportunity to come and evangelize a city that I can't reach alone. Mm-hmm. And so I know of a group of people from Midtown actually going, I think this next weekend or the weekend after, to just go evangelize and make connections for that Bible study we're getting established.
Yeah.
And so those trips will be easier to plan and get scheduled out once we arrive.
Right.
I'm hoping that the latest we'll land in St. Louis is the fall of this year, so 2025, no later than October. There's some conferences I'm trying to fit in. I don't know if we'll land the end of August or early September, or if we'll land in October. But the initial goal is to hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. I mean, we kind of already are. Like when I show up, I've got a group of people that are already wanting to meet, and so I'm going to navigate that accordingly.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure there's already commitment from Midtown Baptist Temple. Certainly, Living Faith Lee Summit is going to get behind that. But I'm confident that the churches are going to rally around that, and we'll really be able to get some regularly scheduled trips to really assist in that work.
It'd be wonderful.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait for us to have a slated list of scheduled trips that we can take, and hopefully other churches will join in that as well. Well, Blade, we're praying for you.
Thank you. It means a lot.
And we're very excited for you. And it's a really, really exciting thing, and it's what LFBI and the Living Faith Fellowship had in mind from their inception. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of part of one of the earlier classes of LFBI graduates.
Well, so the semester that I showed up was the very first semester of LFBI. Mm-hmm. So
wow,
yeah, it's kind of fun to look into.
Right, and the idea has always been, so you're part of a local church, and then you were a part of another local church through church planting, and you were doing all that work while you were doing your studies. And that's the beauty of LFBI, is that it's flexible, so that you can continue in ministry while you're studying. And
I wish I would have taken advantage of the time I had as a student. So if there is any college student listening right now, you have capacity. Mm-hmm. If there's any single man who's in his career, you have capacity.
Right.
If you are married without kids, you have capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
there's ways.
Yeah, it's always easier now. Like when we planted Living Faith Lee Summit, I had to step back from the Institute for a season, but I knew very quickly that if I didn't make the commitment to study well and be diligent in that area, then I would be with a family and telling my kids, hey, I need to go step away.
Yeah, that's not better.
That's not better. Yeah, so early on, even before we got married, I was like, hey, Gabs, I just want you to know this is a commitment I'm making, and I want this for trying to envision her. Like when we have a family, I want to be free to be with us. So.
Well, Blade, I love you. I can't wait to travel back and forth to St. Louis.
Yeah, you better.
I will. I will. And thank you for investing in the PS Plus. People are really going to benefit from that over the next few months. And so thank you for all that hard work that you do for that as well.
Greatly appreciate the invitation, not only to that, but to this as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And we want to invite you to visit lfstl.church.
Yes, sir.
And check out the website, see what Blade's up to, what his family's doing in order to prepare to go to St. Louis, how you might be able to partner. Reach out to him if you've got questions about St. Louis, and maybe you're praying through whether or not you should join yourself to him in that work. We want to invite you to do that. But we want to see Blade fully supported while he's there, and so if you can join in that, we would love to hear about that. We want you to also come to LFBI. And so if you are hearing Blade's story and you're saying, man, I want to get trained like that, that's my heart as well, is to be a church planter and to be drawn up into leadership and to be prepared for works just like this one. Well, come join us in the Bible Institute, get some teaching, get the knowledge of God's word, get prepared, cut your teeth in ministry in your local church, but learn from God's word as you go. And then God will prepare you for exactly what he's calling you to as well. And so we're excited about that for you. And we want to invite you to join us next semester at LFBI. With all that said, we love you. We thank you for the time and for hanging out with Blade and I. And we can't wait to see you again next week for another episode of The Postscript. God bless. Thank you for listening to The Postscript. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review in order to help other people find our podcast. If you value this show, please help us continue creating content by supporting Living Faith Bible Institute at lfbi.org/support.